Okay, so in this episode, Bart gets a glimpse into the future. This is not a recent episode. Lisa has become the first female president. She takes over coincidentally after Donald Trump leaves office. Aside from that fact alone, look at this picture. Lisa is also seen wearing a purple suit and pearl necklace, which is seemingly identical to what Vice President Kamala Harris wore on Inauguration Day. This episode of The Simpsons originally aired in March 2000.
Tonight, Mexican authorities continue to investigate the deaths of two sisters from Arizona. Both of them were killed in Sonora, Mexico, Friday morning, and were found dead inside their car that had been riddled with bullets. Now, we know that a lot of you travel down to Sonora to areas like Rocky Point on a pretty regular basis. So ahead of the holiday weekend, how can visitors stay safe? 12 News journalist Bianca Bono talked to an official from the Consulate General of Mexico and has some safety tips from experts.
Tragedy striking near Arizona's southern border after two sisters, 72 and 82 years old, were attacked by armed men and murdered in Mexico. They were on their way to Caborca, Sonora, Mexico, Friday morning, heading there on a highway from the border town of Sonoita, ultimately found dead inside this white Nissan Pathfinder, which had been rolled over and was riddled with bullets. Authorities locating a stolen truck with firearms and ammunition inside, believed to have been operated by the attackers. The criminals responsible still at large.
We're very sorry for this. We're not expecting anything like that to happen to anyone, not a Mexican national, not an American national.
Maria Fernanda Araguin works at the Consulate General of Mexico's Phoenix office. She says she routinely gets questions from Arizonans seeking advice on how to safely travel to Sonora. She says popular vacation destinations there, like Rocky Point, are safe.
It's better if you start early so you get to the place that you're going through during daylight. The second tip that I would say is to stop in public places.
Right now, the U.S. Department of State has issued a travel advisory for Sonora, telling Americans to reconsider visiting the area due to crime and kidnapping.
Telling Americans to reconsider visiting the area due to crime and kidnapping.
Saturday afternoon, 21-year-old Lincer Lopez was baptized in Lake Waxahachie. An hour later, he drowned to death.
An hour later, he drowned to death.
He was a hero, Lincer's uncle Jacobo told me in Spanish. Lincer died, Waxahachie police say, saving a teenage girl also from his church group. They were enjoying the water after several baptisms. She was drowning. He sprung into action. He didn't think twice about rescuing someone else, his uncle said. He didn't think about the risk that he could die, and he did risk his life to save somebody else's. That teenage girl lived, was eventually pulled out of the water by a nearby boater.
I haven't even really begun to, it hasn't sink in yet, like it's hard.
His name is Jacob Bell. He gave her CPR, then helped recover Lincer's body. A deeply personal mission.
I lost my brother that way.
Jacob's brother drowned to death when he was only 3. So his heart hurts for Lincer's family in more ways than one.
He was a hero. He had just been baptized and, gave his life to the Lord. And our family, and we pray for his family, and we pray for the little girl's family. And he was a strong boy, and they should be very proud of him.
There's no doubt they are. Lincer's uncle told me he worked hard in construction to send money to his siblings in Mexico. Lincer was so young, but his legacy will last. His uncle believes his story can inspire others to serve God and help people. If they can help, like my nephew did. And And Lincer's church is now fundraising to help send back his body to his parents in Mexico. We put a link to that GoFundMe on our story about this heartbreaking incident on WFA.com.
Yeah, help out if you can. And Sydney, tell us just a little bit about this day. I think they were looking forward to this baptism so much.
His family said that he looked forward to this so much, Matt, that he could not sleep the night before. That is how important this was to him.
He looked forward to this so much, Matt, that he could not sleep the night before. That is how important this was to him.
It doesn't even seem human-based. It seems like spiritual warfare, which is exactly what it is. It's good versus evil. It's righteousness versus wickedness. That brings us to where we are today, man. And unfortunately, pain is a great alarm clock, and so is fear. Both of those things wake people up. They always have, they always will. And we're going through a lot of pain and fear right now in our country and around the world. And I think that's why you're seeing people start to turn back to the truth.
This, in my assessment, and I know I'm not alone in this, in the veteran community, the dashboard is more than blinking red. It is smoke coming off of it right now in a much more...
Like pre-9/11 levels, you're saying?
Bigger than pre-9/11. There are more fighters in Al-Qaeda 10x than there were pre-9/11. The way the border has been opened. Siraj Haqqani, the father of suicide bombing, is the Minister of Interior. He's issuing passports right now. He's the guy that issues travel documents. So they're here licit as well as illicit. And the fact that our government has given $80 million of taxpayer money every 10 days to the Taliban, I mean, it's almost, you have to ask yourself, what planet am I on right now at this 3-year anniversary?
That is all staggering stuff, much of which I didn't know.
You mentioned tech. You're exactly right. I think why we have seen the turbocharged culture that we're in right now towards evil is because of that. It's because of tech. And when you read the book of Revelation, for instance, that's about Jesus coming back. It's about what's going to happen before he comes back and what's going to happen after he comes back. It lays it all out, written by the Apostle John 2,000 years ago on the Isle of Patmos. John was actually he was a prisoner at that point. He'd been exiled, and he wrote the book of Revelation. But throughout the last couple of thousand years, theologians, preachers, regular people like us would read Revelation and could not make heads or tails as to how this stuff was even possible. It sounded like science fiction. Like, how is this possible? For instance, one of them is the mark of the beast. Like, well, how? It says you won't be able to buy or sell unless you have the mark of the beast or the mark of the system that's in place at that point. And nobody could ever understand, well, how in the world can you track everybody in the world and know how they spend their money and stop them from spending their money? How is that even possible? And then today in 24, we know about central bank digital currency. We know about globalism. We know about all these nations coming together that would love to just stranglehold the human population. So here we are, 2024, and I think today the reason you're seeing a lot of people starting to wake up and pick the book up and start to read it and start to open up is because they can feel that these things are now happening. This is a new era, 2024 and beyond. It's a new era. It's probably part of what got you to wake up, that you're seeing all these things going, what am I really looking at? Because a lot of what you're seeing just defies logic altogether. And it seems so outside that it doesn't even seem human-based. It seems like spiritual warfare, which is exactly what it is.
And it seems so outside that it doesn't even seem human-based. It seems like spiritual warfare, which is exactly what it is.
This is another loss for ESPN, but it is a gain for literally the rest of the world, because now you're going to see the true Sam Ponder.
Sage Steele sounding off on the firing of ESPN's Sam Ponder. The network claims it's due to budget cuts, but Ponder was outspoken on the fight for fairness in women's sports. Michelle Tafoya is a former NFL sideline reporter. She joins us now. Here's something that Ponder tweeted in 2023. Call me whatever names you want, but it doesn't change the fact that it is inherently unfair for biological males to compete in female sports. It's literally the reason they were separate in the first place and the reason we need Title IX. Now, to me, that feels like common sense for a lot of people. I work at a place where I can say what I think about anything at any time, and they back me up. What did she do that was wrong? And do you believe that it was just budget cuts?
I don't believe that anything is just budget cuts anymore. I think that they clearly wanted to find an off-ramp for Sam. What's troubling to me is the timing. This is 3 weeks before the NFL season begins. Her show, Sunday NFL Countdown, is coming off its best ratings year in quite some time. So I don't know why they would do this so close to the season and bring so much attention unless they want to bring in the next host and give that host a lot of attention. But what Sam said in that tweet was so reasonable. And by the way, Kirk Herbstreit, another ESPN announcer, also does the NFL on Amazon this week, said, I'm tired of being quiet about this. Men don't belong in women's sports. It is a majority opinion in this country.
And I'm tired of being quiet about this. Men don't belong in women's sports. It is a majority opinion in this country.
A Tempe Wells Fargo employee died at her desk. And 12 News is now confirming that it may have taken as many as 4 days for anyone in the office to notice.
It may have taken as many as 4 days for anyone in the office to notice.
Days. I mean, this poor woman went 4 days undiscovered. It's hard to believe.
And that's a question many employees are asking themselves tonight. I spoke with an employee who said that she shared her perspective on the workplace environment, and they say it's a big building, but most people don't work there on a daily basis.
A Wells Fargo employee went to work the morning of Friday, August 16th, and never went home. Tempe police tell 12 News 60-year-old Denise Prudhomme scanned into work at 7 o'clock in the morning. 4 days later, police responded to the office building near Washington Street and Priest Drive for reports of a subject down. Prudhomme was declared dead. The Tempe Police Criminal Investigation Bureau is investigating, but do not suspect foul play. A Wells Fargo employee exclusively spoke with 12 News, but asked not to be recorded or identified out of fear for their job. They say a colleague found Prudhomme dead at her desk in a cubicle while walking around the building on Tuesday, August 20th. Prudhomme's cubicle was reportedly on the 3rd floor and away from the main aisle. This employee says several people had smelled a foul odor, but passed it off as faulty plumbing. They say while most Wells Fargo employees at this Tempe location work remote, the building has 24/7 security, and someone should have found Prudhomme sooner. The incident left several employees feeling scared and uneasy.
And now to a developing story out of the East County tonight. 2 school bus routes in the Hamul-Dulzura Union School District were interrupted for 2 straight days after several migrants tried to board school buses. Our Sarah Legre has the story tonight.
Well, yeah, there have been 2 migrant encounters in the past 2 days involving school buses and young children here at Hamul-Dulzura USD. Now, no one was injured and all students are safe, but parents are angry. Your initial shock is you're helpless. It's practice night for Nicole Cardinale and her son Apollo.
Hi.
It's the ordinary, but their morning certainly wasn't.
20 illegal migrants tried to get on the bus today at one of our bus stops.
Hours earlier, she got this email letting Nicole know her 8-year-old son was aboard his school bus heading to Hamul Elementary when all of a sudden...
Really confused. He said these adults, they weren't kids. He said, but they had backpacks on, Mom, and they tried to get on our bus. He said, and there was a lot of them.
The district confirmed 20 migrants tried to board the bus Wednesday morning when it stopped to pick up students here along its B route. That's when parents and the driver stepped in, keeping the migrants at bay.
It was definitely really scary.
It also happened Tuesday along Route A, shown here in orange near State Route 94. 3 men walked along the highway trying to stop the bus to, quote, go around their group.
When they see a bus, naturally the impulse might be, this will take me to a much safer area.
Pedro Rios helps lead the humanitarian response at the U.S.-Mexico border. He says while it's unclear why the group tried to board Wednesday, heat and mountain terrain can drive a desperate response.
First and foremost, there has to be an acknowledgement by the Biden administration that asylum is a human right.
Parents like Jeremy Adams now demanding answers from the district and a safety plan to help quell fears.
We don't know who these people are. We don't know if they have any criminal history, what their background is.
Meanwhile, the sheriff's office says it's conducting an investigation and says it takes safety very seriously and are working with the school district in order to keep students and the community safe. As far as Nicole goes, she's stuck with the what ifs.
It's just scary that these kids are put into this situation. If those 20 people would have gotten onto the bus and tried to take over the bus, like these kids and the bus driver could have been in real danger.
The superintendent says she's also been in touch with the CHP along with U.S. Border Patrol. She says in the meantime, she's asking bus drivers to go to the next stop if they do encounter one stop that has migrants nearby, and then asking parents to also meet them at the following stop just to ensure safety for both the community members as well as the students on board.
A state bill could allow undocumented immigrants to purchase a home.
If passed, California would become the first state to grant them state-supported home loans. Our Conan Nolan is live in the newsroom with the next steps. Conan.
That's right. This legislation refers to a California state program, but it could have national ramifications, particularly in an election year. It's legislation in Sacramento receiving national attention, a first-in-the-nation effort to allow undocumented immigrants state money for the purchase of a home. The bill's author, Assemblyman Joaquin Arambula of Fresno.
The social and economic benefits of homeownership should be accessible to everyone, regardless of immigration status.
For those who qualify under the California Dream for All program, the state would pay the 20% down payment for a first-time home buyer, up to $150,000. Assembly Bill 1840 would amend the program so that those in the country in violation of federal law would also be eligible.
Undocumented individuals have historically been excluded from housing initiatives because of federal restrictions. Ensuring universal access by all qualified borrowers to the California Dream for All program will contribute to the overall success and vitality of California.
Backlash has been swift.
And now you got California trying to get homes for illegal immigrants? Are you kidding me?
California Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones.
Every dollar that goes to an illegal immigrant is a dollar not going to our veterans or other Californians, other legal residents or citizens that also qualify for that money. This isn't an unlimited bucket of money that the state has available for these homebuyer programs.
Evan Simon has been covering the vote for the political website California Globe. He says passage of the bill is nearly assured.
A lot of people say you guys predicted Trump's run. I know. We'll take credit for anything.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
Simpsons predicted the future shot by shot because we're part of the Illuminati. Which is true, we are.
Simpsons predicted the future shot by shot because we're part of the Illuminati. Which is true, we are.
The Simpsons have done it again. For years, people have been drawing similarities between gags in the episodes and things that actually end up happening in real life. One of the biggest happened to be when they predicted Donald Trump would become president. Well, now fans are drawing similarities from last week's inauguration. Look at this.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
We're broke.
The country is broke? How can that be?
Well, remember when the last administration decided to invest in our nation's children? Big mistake.
Okay, so in this episode, Bart gets a glimpse into the future. This is not a recent episode. Lisa has become the first female president. She takes over coincidentally after Donald Trump leaves office. Aside from that fact alone, look at this picture. Lisa is also seen wearing a purple suit and pearl necklace, which is seemingly identical to what Vice President Kamala Harris wore on Inauguration Day. This episode of The Simpsons originally aired in March 2000.
How strange is this? On the same day legendary golfer Arnold Palmer died in 2016, he was coincidentally mentioned 4 times on the season premiere of The Simpsons.
Gonna fill a super soaker full of lemonade. Carl's gonna fill one with iced tea, and we're gonna Arnold Palmer Lenny when he walks in.
The show mentioned the beverage named after Palmer, a mix of iced tea and lemonade. The show aired just hours after he died. Social media was amazed by the coincidence. So weird, one tweet said. The Simpsons know all, said another. Then there's this episode of The Simpsons from 1998. It shows the entrance to 20th Century Fox Movie Studios. Now check out the fine print, a division of Walt Disney Company. Years later in 2017, as Simpsons predicted, Disney announced they were buying 20th Century Fox.
But there's one cartoon show that feels otherwise. Back in 1999, The Simpsons aired an episode called Sunday Cruddy Sunday. The episode shows a team that resembles the 49ers winning the Super Bowl, and you guessed it, Miami.
The Simpsons, they've had a lot of episodes where they have predicted a lot of stuff.
And wildly enough, he's right. The Simpsons had an episode in 1993 predicting the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl, which they did in 93. Back in 1992, the Lisa the Greek episode predicted the Redskins would win the Super Bowl. The Washington Redskins. 3 days later, they won. But it's not only sports that the show has a strong track record in. In 2000, the episode Bart to the Future predicts Donald Trump will be president.
You know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
This has got a lot of attention on social media. Some posting Simpsons predicted 49ers winning the Super Bowl in Miami. And everybody knows the Simpsons don't lie.
You have a great knack for predicting the future on that show.
We really have. I like to joke that they have a crystal ball in the middle of the writer's table. You know, it's so great and it is uncanny.
And it seems the Simpsons just can't wait for next season to deal with Donald Trump. The Simpsons released this video online tonight.
But this was perhaps Donald Trump's most celebrated arrival, when he escalated himself into the presidential race.
It's the most momentous announcement you can make in your entire career. You're like, I want to come in on an escalator.
Hey, only losers walk. Presidents take Stair Force One.
The escalator's own parody Twitter account tweeted, "The ego has landed using an escalator." Someone added elevator music to the escalator video and made a 10-minute loop. Even Homer Simpson rode the escalator behind Trump, whose hair sucked Homer into his scalp.
I'm right behind him. Not supposed to stare at it directly, but I can't help it.
I am officially running.
No! Don't take me out of the ginger forest!
There's more. In one episode, tiger trainers based on Siegfried and Roy were mauled on stage. Years later, it happened in real life.
As strange as it seems that they keep predicting the future, I'm not so sure whether you should be going back to your old VHS.
A Grand Rapids woman was arraigned today in connection with the death of one of her children and the alleged abuse of another.
News 8's Megan Bunchman has more on what we're learning.
Twin brother and sister, almost 2 years of age, now separated forever. After what police are calling one of the most horrific cases of child abuse they've ever seen in Grand Rapids.
The charges read that on or about August 22nd,
24-year-old Brooklyn Ray Davis was arraigned Wednesday on 2 felony counts: homicide or murder of her daughter Sky Swope, and child abuse in the first degree against Sky's brother, who's now in ICU fighting for his life. Court documents obtained by News 8 show Davis called 911 back on August 22nd, stating her little girl was dead. When emergency responders arrived at her apartment, located on Eastern Avenue near Baxter, they found, quote, a very malnourished Sky. Her eyes were sunken into their sockets, and the skin around her ribs and collarbone was so sunken in that you could see, quote, all her bones clearly. The medical examiner determined Sky died from starvation. Weighing only 13 pounds at the time of her death, she was 18 months old.
it is a felony offense punishable by life in prison without parole.
Documents revealed responders observed Sky's twin brother, also lethargic and unable to hold his head up. The twins, along with their older brother, were living in an unclean house, infested with lice and bed bugs, amongst other pests. Their emaciated dog was living in one of the 2 bedrooms and used the bathroom inside. Davis told police she realized her twins were losing weight, but did not contact a doctor with her concerns of weight loss or the extreme diaper rash they were experiencing, causing sores.
This court takes the severity of what is being alleged today as, again, a significant determination and bond. At this point in time, again, bond can always be revisited, but at this point I'm going to deny any bail or bond.
Davis will be back in court next month, and until then, her 8-year-old is in the care of Child Protective Services, and the other twin is getting help at at an area hospital.
We will.
It's hard to hear.
Israel has launched airstrikes across southern Lebanon, calling it a preemptive strike on Hezbollah.
Meantime, the militant group said it launched hundreds of rockets and drones to avenge the killing of one of its top commanders last month. There are fears an all-out war could draw in the U.S., Iran, and militant groups across the region. The heavy exchange of fire comes as U.S. and Arab mediators try to broker a ceasefire deal in the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza.
Explosions and flashes of rocket fire lighting up the sky over the Israel-Lebanon border in the most heated exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah since the war began, amplifying the risk of a regional war. Scores of Israeli missiles fired into southern Lebanon to take out Hezbollah military targets.
An Israeli military spokesperson says Hezbollah was planning to attack Israeli civilians. As a result of the airstrikes, flights headed to Israel's Ben Gurion airport are being diverted.
And it has been firing rockets and has the same sort of, basic posture as Hamas does, that it wants to see Israel wiped from the face of the earth.
Has described the strikes by Israel this morning as the most intense that Lebanon has seen since hostilities began last October. I saw one estimate that there were at least 25 sites that were hit in really just the course of a few hours, and our understanding is there are still some strikes occurring in the south of the country. Now, the Ministry of Health is reporting a preliminary death toll of 3 people. One individual was killed on a strike in a car in a town near the border. 2 others were killed in a strike further away from the border.
I thought it was a great move. Look, the preemptive strike was very, very important, because if they had launched the strike, the Hezbollah into Israel with thousands of missiles, and they were talking thousands, what would have happened with the loss of lives of Israelis and also the facilities? It would have pushed the Israelis into a doctrine they call Dahiyya. And what Dahiyya is called disproportionate response. And I think what they did, they prevented the next or the third Israeli-Lebanese war, and that is smart. And because of that, I think it's kind of reset the battlefield there.
Israel's saying around 100 fighter jets were used in this operation last night, hitting around 200 targets in Lebanon. Now, if that's the case, then that is the most serious attack on Hezbollah since the full-scale war between Israel and Lebanon back in 2006. Now, in the last few weeks, we've seen intense diplomatic efforts to try and stop the crisis in Gaza escalating into a wider regional conflict. But the United States has warned that the failure to get a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza could see this escalate into a wider regional conflict. At the moment, judging on what's happened this morning, you'd have to say that those diplomatic efforts have not worked.
But you kind of got to focus in on what's going to happen there and prevent something from happening into the future. And they haven't done it, but the Israelis have done it. So the Israelis have done, actually, is reset deterrence in the region. And I think it's smart. And I think it's put the Hezbollah on their back foot, and it's clearly put the Iranians on their back foot, that they haven't done anything.
Mariah and Allison Carey are sisters, but they live in very different worlds. Allison Carey descended into drug addiction, prostitution, and despair very early in life. But Mariah Carey became a singing sensation and married a multimillionaire. Well, now those two worlds are about to collide. Allison and her mother are battling over custody of Mariah's 7-year-old nephew. In an exclusive interview, Allison Carey told me why love for a little boy has torn the family apart.
I'm damning myself more and more, and I realize that, when I walk out of here today, if I ever did have a family, I don't have one anymore.
She weighs her words carefully, but doesn't hold back. The truth is, she was an outsider to her family long before this interview. She is 33-year-old Allison Carey, the older sister of pop superstar Mariah Carey. Where Mariah is concerned, Allison is torn between jealousy and love. Convinced Mariah has turned her back at a time when Allison needs her most.
I want to go on record as saying that I love my sister. And she's broken my heart so many times. She's just really broken my heart.
The story first broke in Linda Stacy's column in the New York Daily News, a story of a family crisis that won't go away. It involves Allison, her 7-year-old son Michael, and Allison's mother, Patricia Carey, who picked up the boy in December for what Allison thought was a routine visit. It was not. It was instead the last time Allison would see her son for a very long time. How did you lose your son? What happened?
I gave it to my mother for the weekend. I had done that before. I'll never forget her driving off with Michael and waving and smiling. She knew what she was about to do.
Allison's mother reportedly took the child because her daughter is an unfit parent with a history of drug abuse. Lawyer Stephen Grossman represents Patricia Carey. He says the boy is much safer where he is now.
My client perceived dangerous conditions existed, and it was not in the best interest of her grandson to be where he was at the time. And she acted.
Allison Carey says she does not know where her son is now, but she believes that Mariah is offering financial assistance to care for him. The wedge in Mariah Carey's family was put in place long ago when Allison and Mariah were growing up on Long Island.
Were you ever jealous of her?
Yes, of course. You know, she was very popular. She had a lot of friends. I didn't have any friends.
Their parents separated when Allison was 11. She says she was sent to live with her father. Her mother is white. Her father is black. Mariah, however, rarely speaks about her interracial heritage.
My parents made me say I am an interracial child. Okay, which is going to alienate you right there. My mother said nothing like that will ever happen to Mariah. I won't let it happen. And she moved, and Mariah became Italian and Irish.
At 16, Allison was already married and a mother, but she didn't stay home. Instead, she turned to the streets for money.
I want to ask you about one of the more difficult things in your life. How did you get into prostitution?
Nobody wanted to hire me. I didn't have any experience doing anything. I knew I had to get a job, but I couldn't find one.
For her younger sister, Mariah, life was far different.
When she was 12 years old, she decided she was going to become popular. People were going to think she was beautiful. Mariah's eye was on the goal. The music, it was everything.
In 1987, Allison had a second son, Michael. But when Michael was barely 1, Allison fell into despair. At the age of 27, she had tested positive for the AIDS virus. Her sister was on the brink of superstardom. Anyone with a radio or TV was about to know the name of Mariah Carey.
Mariah dedicated an album to you.
Yes, she did.
But Allison believed the dedication was meant to make Mariah seem like a good sister.
When people start doing things like dedicating an album to me, you know, to make themselves look good, you know, I'm sorry, I just think that that's kind of beneath contempt.
At 24, Mariah Carey is at the top of the music industry and married to Tommy Mottola, the president of Sony Entertainment. Even Allison has to admit her sister has been extremely generous.
Mariah paid to put you through drug rehab?
Yes, she did. But she has never let me forget one single cent she's ever spent on me.
Does she have the right to say to you, I've given enough?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you something else. I wouldn't take another dime from her.
Are you trying to embarrass your sister?
No.
Allison says all she wants now is her son.
Michael is worth fighting for. There's something about Michael that if he sees somebody who's hurting, it doesn't matter how old they are, he'll go over and he'll put his hands on them and he'll try to comfort them. And he'll tell them that it's going to be all right. And he'll tell them that he loves them.
Is that what he did with you?
He's so bad.
Sad news for Mariah Carey, and George Pinocchio joins us now to fill us in.
It's just heartbreaking news to report. Singer Mariah Carey is sharing some devastating news. She lost her mother and her sister on the same day last weekend.
She lost her mother and her sister on the same day last weekend.
Her reps confirmed the news to us, providing us with a statement from Carey saying, "My heart is broken." In her 2020 memoir, Carey acknowledged the relationship with her mom had its ups and downs, calling it a complicated love. Today, she wrote, "I feel blessed that I was able to spend the last week with my mom before she passed." Carey had an estranged relationship with her sister Allison. The causes of their deaths have not been released.
Suicide. Good evening, Arthur Sheehan. The gruesome discovery made in a quiet cul-de-sac. Fox 5's Kendall Green is live right now in Syosset. Kendall, what do we know right now?
Hey, good evening, Arthur. Nassau County homicide squads are investigating that murder-suicide that happened right here. 5 people have been confirmed dead just in this cul-de-sac. You see right here is blocked off by police and crime scene tape right now. But let's just take a look at the video that happened earlier this evening. Now, police confirmed 5 people are dead after reports of a shooting right here on Wyoming Avenue. They say they arrived and reported seeing a male, no age nor description at this point, outside of the home on the front lawn who had an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, that triggered a further investigation inside of the home where they discovered 4 additional victims, all dead inside of that home. Now, neighbors say they believe they all could be family members so far, but police haven't shared ages of those victims, their relationships with the gunman, or a possible motive in the shooting. They're still investigating those details as we speak, but neighbors here passing by the scene, sharing their shock to learn multiple people lost their lives in this midday shooting. One couple here, also neighbors, report the man behind the shooting was in his 60s and had just recently lost his mom, who was in her 90s. Now, just the 2 of them lived together for years, and he took her death really hard, they say, and he was distraught. But of course, they didn't see it going this far.
I didn't think it was that he would take his whole family, his siblings. I thought maybe he was distraught and maybe he did this to himself only. I really didn't think that.
This is really heartbreaking. I mean, this is such a quiet little neighborhood. They used to call it a bedroom community. Oh my God, it's shocking.
Now, of course, this is just a devastating story. So far, police have not identified the victims in this shooting or discussed a motive, but that's the latest here in Syosset. Kendall Green.
In the book of Revelation, it talks all about that. It says, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and powers and the rulers of spiritual darkness of this earth. That's really what the battle and the war is. And the more we see going on in the world, at least for me, because I know what's really up, you can almost see it. I mean, you can see people who are controlled by one or the other. You can really see it. It's clear as a bell.
The first thing I thought about when I saw that is that we had better start paying attention here at home.
You know, what happened on October 7th is not an anomaly. It's gonna hit us here at home. In fact, a lot of the veterans groups who are warning about an attack are saying that the next attack that hits the homeland is not going to be a World Trade Center type attack. It's going to be more of an October 7 style, Russian theater style attack where we live, work, and play. So I hope we're paying close attention to this.
Wow, I mean, you're talking, we've let in millions and millions of people. We have no idea who we are. We're vulnerable.
Yeah, we are. And ironically, the attackers that we're probably going to see do that have trained in the very NATO bases that we lived and operated in for 20 years in Afghanistan.
Wow.
To get people to wake up and realize this is way bigger than politics. This is way bigger than left and right, way bigger than culture. This is the ultimate that's going on right now. And to my point earlier, I think with the advent of tech and all the things that have happened, we don't know when this is all going to take place, but it's now possible for these things to take place. Those prophecies are not just in Revelation. They're in Daniel. Daniel talked about it 500 years before Jesus was around. He was talking about the whole thing. 2 Thessalonians, 1 Corinthians, Paul was talking about it. It's throughout the Bible, what it's going to be like in the end times. So
this is the impact this has had on veterans all over the country. You know, these veterans defended America for 20 years. They did what they were asked to do. And then they were put in a position where they had to answer the phone and stand up for allies that our government wouldn't stand up for. And the moral injury that has caused, the level of suicide and impact, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue. And Global War on Terror veterans, Pete, are trying to warn the American people and our politicians that it is coming, and it's going to come out of the very place that it started, and I hope we're listening.
You said it right here. The dashboard isn't just blinking, it's smoking.
Absolutely.
I pray you're wrong, but I fear you're right, because nobody would know it better than you.
that brings us to where we are today, man. And unfortunately, pain is a great alarm clock, and so is fear. Both of those things wake people up. They always have, they always will. And we're going through a lot of pain and fear right now in our country and around the world. And I think that's why you're seeing people start to turn back to the truth.
We're going through a lot of pain and fear right now in our country and around the world. And I think that's why you're seeing people start to turn back to the truth.